One of the things that I should say is that I own a company, and I'm also have an independent entity in Belgium, so freelance. So I have walked in your shoes, and I have had the highs and the lows of being a freelancer, and trying to get business and stay relevant and all of these things. So, but I think we're living in changing times. So one of the things that I've been involved a lot in is the next normal, and the next normal is now. And McKinsey published a report in September 2020, and there were lots of things in it. But in terms of this group, I think millions of job losses, we know that. The acceleration of digital, they anticipate will go up by 85%. Okay, and that in a way is great for the freelance community. Normalization of remote working. There were lots of organizations that were very resistant. They were very much focused on a presence culture. And so that means that working remotely is now much more highly accepted than it was before. And the second and the last thing, which I think is really important to freelancers, is that they are anticipating a two-tier workforce. And by a two-tier workforce, it means permanent employees and a much greater spread of freelance or gig workers. So there's positives and negatives in that. I have to say I'm not a total fan for lots of reasons, but I think that one of the most important things about this session is that you use that to your advantage. So we've basically got the internal and the external, and what is going to happen, I think, is that, and Google are already doing this, where they have regular employees who have a higher status than external or gig workers, and you have different rights of access, and that's something that I have great concerns about. But hopefully not all organizations will go down that track. The other reason that I'm not a fan of this is that a lot of organizations are talking about agile working, okay? For me, agile means disposable. And so this means that for the freelancer, you've got to make sure that you take precautions to protect yourself, that you have a safety net and you have insurance. That's really, really important now, because I think we're going into a new era of what that means to be a freelance worker in a corporate environment. So there are lots of questions, but I've identified 5. And if anybody I'm sure I've missed something, so anybody can chip in, but these are the topics that I want to raise with you for you to think about and we can explore together. Now, who is responsible for hiring freelancers? Maybe you can put in the chat what your experience has been. My experience is it's HR, it can be the hiring manager, or it can be procurement. And truthfully, in the current climate, with so many people now on the freelance market, neither route is ideal and neither route is well equipped to handle and do skill set assessments. I mean, there's no one from procurement here, so I can say this. For me, that's the worst route, you know, where you're filling in these vendor application forms the size of telephone books, and they don't have the skills to see who is the best fit for the job. The hiring manager tends to tap into who or she knows the best, and that means that you've got people who are constantly being rehired, and then outsiders struggle to get in. And HR people or talent acquisition are generally focused on people who've had a linear career, they don't have CV gaps, they've had a career history and path that they understand, and they're not familiar with a project style of working. So currently, from an organizational standpoint, none of these are ideal. So that is the area that has to change for organizations. But it's going to be about how do you get around those barriers. This means that they have to reset hiring practices, right? in terms of attraction. How do they attract talent? And basically, you are the other side of the coin. So how do you come onto their radar in terms of being visible? How do you come onto their sourcing channels? How do they know you're out there? And how do you get selected? So that's really important. So at the moment, where they're in this sort of hybrid state, which probably in terms of freelancers is not working terribly well. But what I'm hoping is as this system starts to anchor itself into our corporate practices, then we'll gain some clarity around it. I think certainly and this is a personal view, I think that talent acquisition needs to work with talent development. I don't think in the current circumstances that they should be separated, but a lot of corporates are struggling to bridge that gap at the moment. That they need to think holistically about what they're doing, and I'm going to come on to that in terms of who owns your skills and how you stay relevant, because that's going to be increasingly an issue, and who is responsible for acquiring these skills, and how do you anticipate what's going to be needed. So the most important thing for you, regardless of whichever route you go down, is you need to stand out, right? And I think that was one of the questions, is how do you get onto people's radar? And it's about connecting. So you've got to check your digital footprint. Okay, so this means that you need to have a website, you need to be relevant, you need to have high visibility. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about some of the platforms that freelancers are using, but I think one of the most important places to have a very strong presence is LinkedIn. So, so you need to be complete. It needs to be optimized for keywords in terms of your target audience, right? So where do you want to work? And one of the things that's happened because of COVID and the normalization of remote working, it's made the world much more available to people who wanted to do freelance. So there's no reason for someone who is based in the Netherlands couldn't be taking a gig job in Austria or the States or anywhere else in the world. So I think in lots of ways your opportunities have grown, and I work globally. And sometimes it's a bit inconvenient because you've got the time zone issues, but the world has opened up now with COVID. So you need to make sure that you're what we call socially proofed. By that I mean that you have good references that are in the public domain, right? So if you have a website, right, you need to make sure that you've got endorsements, that you've got proof that you are doing a great job. So recommendations on LinkedIn, endorsements on your website, and on any other social media platform. It depends on your target market. It depends on your activities, because there are certain sectors, for example, where Instagram might be your main platform. It depends what you do. You need to have a website, and you need to be checking on the websites of the places that you're targeting, right? And just because all the time people are looking out for gig workers and people to take on freelance commitments. The other thing that you need to do on LinkedIn, and you'll have seen this, a lot of organizations are now bypassing LinkedIn Recruiter, right? LinkedIn Recruiter is really expensive. So because there are so many people on the market, they don't need to look at that. So you want to be checking into LinkedIn all the time, because people are now posting in their streams that they have an opening. And you may also have seen a little purple circle on some LinkedIn profiles, which is say we're hiring, right? And you can run a string on LinkedIn looking for alerts around we're hiring. I've got an alert set up, a global alert, and every day I get alerts from around the world about who's hiring what. Now you want to target that down for your target market. The other thing that you can do is you can put on your LinkedIn profile, if you want to put a green circle around your profile photo, that's fine. The circles are not searchable, but you can put hashtag ONO, which is open for new opportunities or open to work. So you just want to make sure that you're really, really searchable. Okay. And the other thing is that you need to network. Because in my experience, a lot of freelance opportunities go through recommendations, and I see this all the time, particularly on LinkedIn, even on Twitter, actually. I'm a bit of a Twitter addict, so I see this going on all the time. So you really need to identify your target companies, your target market, and you want to start networking very actively in that sector. And by that, I don't mean pitching people that you don't know, because there's nothing more annoying than having a total stranger pitch you, or someone you haven't clapped eyes on for 20 years, you know, asking if you've got an opportunity. So what you need to do is to there's a great saying that you don't fix your roof when it's raining. What you have to do is make networking part of your everyday activity. So it's really about raising your connectivity. And then from the company side, that every interaction with the company is part of the talent attraction process. So if you've got target companies, you want to start interacting with them, right? You want to start acting with the main people who are in those companies. So you can follow people on LinkedIn, you can post comments on any discussions that they post. You should post discussions yourself, okay? Facebook, quite often a lot of organizations now have Facebook pages. They have company pages on LinkedIn. Some of them have Instagram feeds where they do stories that they send out. Really important. If you want to do a story on Instagram, post it. That's also something you can start doing. So it's about tapping into all the opportunities that you have to raise your visibility, but it has to be in line with your market. Okay, so I mean, I think on the tech side that you're in a lucky position where you're working in an area that has a long history of project work. There are lots of websites and platforms set up specifically with projects for people like you. I think that the hardest area will be for people who have been badly hit by COVID and looking at events. And you are going to have to identify your transferable skills to see where you either need to upskill or you need to identify your transferable skills and how you can use those for other areas. And there are lots of organizations, I like this one, like this event, that are now going online. And it's a question of making sure that your skills are transferable to basically what is now the new normal. And I think that the World Economic Forum said by 2025, I mean, something like 30% or 40% of the global workforce will need to upskill. Part of it is COVID, part of it is just digitalization and AI. So what COVID has done is accelerated that process. So important for you to have a career development plan where you put upskilling or even transferring or career pivot, whatever it is that you want to do, to take into account changes in the market. So this is the really tough one. It's about the skill assessment and how you pitch when basically it's a lot around who you know and how do you break into that market. And certainly it's going to be about self-promotion. And a lot of people are not keen to do that, but I think you've got, and particularly women tend to be more reluctant to do that. And it's about promoting yourself, developing what's called a personal brand, and making sure that you're highly visible. So for those of you who are not actively promoting yourself, that is something that I would advise you really to start doing. And I think particularly in a world where the freelance population has, is become huge now because of COVID. I'll just give you for instance, in my area, for example, I'm a career coach and I've been doing this for over 30 years. But I now have in my network 1.1 million resume writers. I have 800,000 career coaches and 200,000 LinkedIn specialists. And a lot of these people only have about 8 or 9 months experience. So, but they are out there pushing themselves. So if you don't raise your visibility and start actively promoting yourself, you're going to get left behind. The second thing is about pitching. And one of the questions was, how do I get my first role? One of the things is, so it's about self-promotion, it's about marketing yourself, but it's also about having a unique message. Well, how do you have everyone's saying, how do I have a unique message? That's really hard. But what you have to do is make sure that you have a clear message that you communicate. It's what I call the 3 C's, that you communicate with clarity, consistence, and coherence. So this means that you don't market your message, get a job, and then do anything for 6 months. So even if you're currently working on a project, you still have to allocate time for marketing. And to some, that will not make a lot of sense, but you can't take your foot off the gas. You've got to keep on doing this. What you have to do is make sure that your message is consistent so that you get known for either a range of things, a small range of things. You don't want to be a jack of all trade. You want to be a specialist in maybe 3 or 4 max different items. And then you want to message that accordingly. And you want to make sure that you are communicating that message into your right audience. And then going back to what I said about being searchable is making sure that people can find you. Because you might have this great message, but if you're not working, you're not promoting yourself, you're not making, you're not reaching out to people, no one will hear you. These are some of the platforms that, I mean, for me, LinkedIn would be a very important platform for those who are not particularly involved in tech. And certainly in, you've got specific freelance job sites, Upworthy, TopTal, Jello, and Fiverr. I don't know, I think they have some more upmarket people on Fiverr. I've had a couple of dodgy experiences on Fiverr as someone who has bought services. The other thing is remote job sites. Now this could be interesting. And you've got Remoters, remoters.net, and Digital Nomad. So, and there are lots of others. So it's just about researching. Now, quite often they're looking for people who want to work full time, but sometimes they're not. So it's just a question of setting up alerts so that you get these signals. Make sure you set up alerts on LinkedIn. Facebook as well have got Twitter. They've all got clusters and groups and nests of people who are all working in the same area. And it's important. And people, if you're in that nest of people, and for example, I do it myself. I'm frequently asked to recommend someone, or if I can't do something, I will refer someone. What you want to do is to make sure that you are top of mind for somebody making a referral for your area of expertise. Now, this is a really interesting question, and I've actually been on international HR forum where people have debated this for hours. Who owns your skills, right? Who is responsible for skill acquisition and development? Is it you or is it the organization? Okay. What I'm seeing, one time it used to be the organization, where the organization was responsible for upskilling you, right? What we're seeing now, and this places a big pressure on you as the freelancer, that first of all, you have to make sure that you're relevant. You have to make sure you're up to date. That's really important, and that can be expensive. But it also means that you have to anticipate need and trends. And that's really hard to do. And one of the things that, the ways to do that is to talk to people, attend events, read, keep up to date. At the moment, it's very much in the middle. They haven't quite decided what's going on. But this is the shift that I'm seeing, that the freelancer will have to come to an organization equipped to go from the beginning. And you might find some organizations who will train you as you're going along. But what I'm seeing is some reluctance from organizations to do that. And I had a really interesting discussion with someone from Siemens a couple of weeks ago, and they are actually taking a reverse attitude. So that might be an organization to put on your list. They're taking an attitude where they're basically renting your skills. They will make you successful in their organization, and then they will let you go. And that might be one of the things when you're looking for gigs that you might want to find out, what am I going to learn from this? What will they do? What are they going to do to help me be successful? And the other thing, it also depends on the reasons that you want to be freelance, because different people want to be freelance for different reasons. And then the other thing is about, contract, making sure your paperwork, making sure that you're protected. The other thing that you want to really make sure is that if you're bringing any IP to a project, that you protect that. So I've seen a lot of people, particularly people who are new to freelancing, and they work for free, and you can be so desperate to get into the market that you make concessions, which is really hard to dial back from. And it's pitching your price too low. It's giving too much for nothing. And what will happen is an organization will have a better deal. So make sure that your paperwork and your contractual arrangements are as watertight as they can be.